pretty close to Horseshoe Beach there. Now, this is an extremely dangerous situation. And interestingly enough, the history on this, back in 2004 during Hurricane Charlie, they saw winds so powerful near central Florida that they didn't really have a wind warning that really explained and expressed just how powerful the system was, even though it was pushing inland. So what did they do? They issued a tornado warning. And the reason, the significance for me telling you that is, if you're in this extreme wind warning, you have to treat it like a tornado warning. That's how powerful the winds are that are getting ready to drive in. And that's why you want to head to that higher level in your home, the more interior portions of your home. We're at Category 4 status right now. Winds currently 140 miles per hour. The storm is moving so quickly to the north-northeast at 24 miles per hour. So yes, landfall should be anticipated within inside of the hour. I also want to show you this here. If you'll notice the eye wall, we've got the lightning. We saw about over 5,000 strikes inside of an hour not too long ago. That tells me just how strong and strengthening the storm was upon landfall and how close the eye is now getting just to the south of Perry there. So, you know, we're near T-0. The track for this storm is intended to push inland. Notice how it also maintains its strength. Category 2 Friday morning, pushing into middle Georgia, Macon, Georgia, experiencing hurricane force winds potentially. And then we have some of the major threats and ramifications of this storm. Of course, the storm surge, we're already starting to see that in some visuals. 10 to 20 feet of storm surge is possible from Apalachicola to Crystal River. That water is rising and moving in. We are seeing very strong storm surge even as far south as Tampa and Sarasota. And then this is going to be a story. The story is two-part. It's the hurricane hitting Florida, and then it's a hurricane driving in coupled with the storm system that was pre-existing over Georgia. And that together is leading to an extreme flood risk. So the storm system, again, moving extremely quickly further inland, and we're going to see extreme flooding and flash flooding as far north as Asheville, North Carolina by tomorrow. Lindsay?
A lot of ramifications there. Samara Theodore, our thanks to you. Additional images now are coming in from Southwest Florida. Let's take a look. This is Naples, Florida, a shopping center. You see it there, partially underwater. And again, that water only expected to continue to rise. Let's check in with ABC's Ike Ajachi, who's in Tallahassee. Ike, how have conditions changed there since we last spoke, where you're located?
Well, Lindsay, as you can see right now, I'm a little wetter from the last time we spoke just about an hour ago. That's because the wind and the rain has picked up significantly here in Tallahassee. We know the landfall is expected really within the next couple of hours to inundate and completely drench this entire area with heavy rain and high winds. And you can see that essentially picking up right now, so much so that the National Weather Service has now issued an extreme wind warning for this entire Tallahassee area and the surrounding communities. And they're asking residents to treat this extreme wind warning as if a tornado were coming through the area. They're asking people to get indoors, find shelter, and obviously, like Samara said, try to seek shelter in higher floors of whatever building or structure that you're in right now. And again, talking about last time before, the streets still empty. Obviously, even less people are on these streets. Less cars are seen driving through these streets. And as you can see right now, the wind, the rain is picking up, and we're seriously getting into the brunt of Helene getting into the Tallahassee area, Lindsay.
Well, good to hear at least that residents are heeding those official warnings to stay inside or evacuate altogether. What's your biggest concern as Helene approaches the coastline in that area?
Well, the biggest concern right now is the water and the wind. The water being the urban flooding. Here in Tallahassee, flooding can be a major issue given the severity of the rainstorms that come here. And a lot of the officials are saying the flooding is essentially something that they're worried about right now. There's a lot of areas around the town here that act as a bowl that gather water rather quickly, and it doesn't really leave the area as quick as it came in there. But that's a big issue. But another issue is the wind. Why? I want to show you something real quick. Take a look right here. You see these trees right here? These trees are all over the place in Tallahassee. These massive trees, you can see them weeping. Those weeping trees right now, they're essentially a staple here in the area, but they're very easy to come down. You got to understand, there was a lot of rain here over the past few days before Helene got into this area, really saturating the ground and essentially causing these trees and a lot of the power lines to be very weak at the bottom. So this rain that's coming in now, a lot of the rain, obviously, with the wind, can uproot those trees, those power lines, and cause major issues on a lot of the roads here. There's a lot of trees all in this area. The officials are very worried about those trees causing widespread damage all throughout the Tallahassee area, which is why they're telling individuals to stay home, be careful. Once these winds come in here, there's no telling the kind of damage that it can cause in this area, which is why you're seeing so many homes, so many buildings boarding up. Remember the last area I showed you, the boarding up, obviously the sandbags that are all throughout this area. It's a common scene all throughout Tallahassee as Helene starts to make its way into the area.
I know it's the least of concerns, but feeling for you got to put a hat or a hood on something there. You look like you are drenched, Ike, but thank you so much for your reporting. We're going to keep checking in with you throughout the evening, so do stay safe, you and your crew. In nearby Taylor County, Florida, the sheriff's office is asking people to refrain from returning to the area until officially directed by Emergency Operations Center. They say roads there are impassable and there may be down power lines. This is a live look there at Taylor County. Fallen trees, other dangerous conditions. They also have this grim note for residents just highlighting the true danger of this storm, saying if someone chooses to not evacuate, write their name on their leg or arm. And the Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome, is back with us now. Jamie, thanks for joining us again. I know you just heard Samara there with the latest on the timing of the track. Just walk us through what you all are seeing.
Yeah, you covered it well with the excessive wind warning. That's a warning we issue as the eye wall of a major hurricane is moving ashore. That's what's happening now, not making landfall yet, just the eye wall itself is starting to move ashore. And that's a message that signals to people that are in that excessive wind warning that it's no longer safe to leave your home. It's a hunker down, shelter in place type of situation. I liked your analogy to treating it like a tornado, kind of the same thing. Move to the interior of your home and do everything necessary to protect you and your family.
How far do you anticipate that landfall is?
Probably another hour or so away. Landfall is defined when the center itself crosses shore. In this case, we're just looking at the eye wall is beginning to touch land.
We spoke to you a little while ago. Anything that you're now even more concerned about or you're paying more specific attention to since the most recent update?
We're hoping that the intensification has stopped. It's already a Cat 4, but it's still trying to intensify. So, we're hoping that it stops, but we're going to keep monitoring it and putting out updates as fast as we can.
And once again, just talk to us about the dangers of a Category 4 hurricane with winds now up to 140 miles per hour.
Well, that's where we start to classify the wind damage as catastrophic. Significant structural damages to homes. You were talking about it in the prelude to this interview about the tree canopy. The tree canopy in this part of the country is really dense, and with all that rainfall that's occurring, the soil is very, very saturated. So those trees are going to come down really, really easily. Widespread power outages, blocked roads, impassable roads. People are not going to be able to get out and go and do things. Tomorrow they're not going to be able to go to the store or things like that. So, people really need to be prepared to protect themselves and their family for several days without power.
All right, Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center, Jamie Rome, we thank you again for joining us. And now to Pinellas County, Florida. The rain is coming down hard there. Reporter Mary O'Connell from our partner station WFTS joins us now with the latest. Mary, what are you seeing?
Conditions have certainly deteriorated over the last few hours. I'll step out of the way so you can get an idea, but the rain has certainly picked up. You can see it just whipping here across this parking lot. The rain is blowing sideways. You can see it in the light and the trees here. This is an area we've been in for the last several hours. The sponge docks nearby are prone to flooding. We've also been keeping an eye on that and any potential storm surge that we may see later on tonight. We did see some ponding in the road nearby that we expect was from the downpours that we've seen over the last several hours. Another thing that Tarpon Springs police are keeping an eye on are live wires that are down, power lines that are down, and debris in the roads. They're asking people to stay inside. We've actually seen some transformers blow and light up the sky in purple and green. So that's something that's obviously a cause for concern and why officials are asking people to stay inside. Again, you can see these conditions here, the whipping winds and this blowing rain sideways. It's deteriorated. We go in and out of bands, and we're certainly in one right now, but we're going to continue to monitor these conditions. I'm Mary O'Connell in Tarpon Springs. Back to you.
Okay, Mary, thank you. Stay safe as well. And we now go about 100 miles north to Cedar Key, Florida, where Phil Prescott, a local chaplain and volunteer firefighter, joins us. Thank you so much for joining us on the phone. Just give us a sense of where you are now and what the conditions are like.
I'm just a little ways off of the island. My wife and I evacuated earlier today because the conditions were going to be unsafe. So the wind is raging, the wind is whipping. Where we are, the branches and debris are blowing against the house constantly. So it's a pretty terrifying moment.
Cedar Key is facing landfall from Helene after having just survived Hurricane Debbie and still hurting from last year's hit from Hurricane Idalia. What's your biggest concern personally right now?
The number one concern I have is there are 750 full-time residents, and about 50 of them did not evacuate. And the mayor, who is a good friend of mine, did not because she has responsibilities there. And I just got word that she was having to flee her home because of rising water. And she has some ability to do that some of the others will not, some of the more elderly. So I have some concerns for those. The water and power were shut down and lost from the island easily 2 hours ago, and it's going to be at best 24 hours for the power and maybe days for the water. So those kind of issues are just of grave concern.
Of course. Do you have any sense of how many people decided to evacuate or are choosing to just kind of hunker down?
The word I get is about 50 people decided to stay. And I would suggest most of those are probably elderly.
Okay. Well, Phil Prescott, we are certainly hopeful that everybody stays safe. Thank you so much for joining us. And ABC News Live Prime will continue our coverage of this Category 4 hurricane throughout the evening. Stay with us. And now we do want to move on to other major headlines this Thursday night, including the criminal indictment of New York City Mayor Eric Adams, accused of taking campaign contributions and luxury gifts from Turkey. Federal prosecutors say it went on for years.
Please stand by. Please stand by.
Safe and accounted for.
Yeah. I don't know if we still have Chris. If we do, I mean, I'm curious. Oh, Chris, we still have you. You've been through several of these storms, and I think Longboat Key is one area where you've been out. We were not able to be out there. Have you been able to check in with anybody that you know, any sources out there to see kind of how these areas are doing, what it's looking like in terms of that surge?
Well, so we do know that Longboat Key, particularly on the bay side, is very vulnerable and susceptible. We would expect that any similar flooding, we heard this from Sarasota County and also, I believe, Venice officials, that if you had flooding during Idalia, if you even had flooding during Debbie, you might expect that there would be some flooding as well. We know that St. Armand Circle and areas that are up farther north of that in Manatee County. Here, I'm going to step out a little bit just as we continue to have more cars. Actually, wow, so they're dragging this this convertible out.
Wow.
Good Samaritan came by in this big Jeep and is carrying the first car that got flooded out here on the Tamiami Trail. And so at least we are able to move this car out of the way. And the driver is in the car and he's okay. I talked to him. But obviously he's very upset. He had this car for about a year, he said, and now he might just have to try and strip it or salvage it for parts. So One thing too, Dave and Courtney, that I also forgot to mention is that there also were a couple of people that were here in the median. There are neighborhoods that are in front of me that are now underwater. I talked to two fellas who said that their mother was in there and needed to be rescued, and that an ambulance came just in the last half hour, and they said that she was rescued from her home. So right where we are in downtown Venice, we already are seeing some rescues of people from their homes, and clearly cars now that are getting stuck here in this rising water.
Yeah, whether or not it's a simple home out there or a nice Mercedes like that, everybody's concerned about their property and making sure they get through this okay. So tough time for a lot of people.
Yeah, and we're going to see more of those rescues and more of this moving forward as well in a lot of counties. And they have the teams that are out there ready to deploy as soon as it's safe, or if it's safe right now, they are going in and helping where they can. You know, one other area where we've just seen a ton of water, Dave. I mean, I texted Eric Glasser earlier. Yeah. My jaw dropped looking at Bayshore Boulevard. We've seen the water there, but it was the washing machine that I talked about right there. And I think we have that. Do we have a live look there at Bayshore Boulevard? Yep, there it is. You might recall earlier, Eric Glasser was down, just past the balustrades as it dips in, the steps that lead down into the bay. And I remember him saying, here I am, and just imagine, 5 feet over my head. Look at this right here.
And look how it's moving there. I mean, just the challenge of, there's just no way that water is going to go where it wants to go and find its way. You just hope that you're not too close to that right now. You just wonder, and you see the lights off in the distance. I believe that is Tampa General Hospital right there. So we were told by Eric that he saw a lot of activity, a lot of ambulances, fire trucks, that kind of thing going into Tampa General Hospital. We also have Miguel Octavio, who is in St. Pete right now. Miguel, you moved to higher ground to avoid some of those floodwaters there. What are you seeing right now? What's it like there?
Well, Dave and Courtney, you both mentioned how strong the wind sounded outside, and I can tell you those winds are getting much stronger. We can really hear the howling of those winds, and we can only imagine what the storm surge looks like closer to the water, where we spent most of our day at Vinoy Park, North Shore Park, and some of those areas that were already flooding when there was daylight out, including Shore Acres. In fact, in this hotel in downtown St. Pete, we'd met a number of people who evacuated from those low-lying coastal areas, including Shore Acres, a lot of them keeping track of their homes right now through their door cameras and the inside as well, and their heart just breaks seeing the flooding going inside, water going inside once again, because it was just more than a year ago when a number of those people were flooded out because of Hurricane Idalia, and they're back here at the same spot. And Pinellas County is warning we still have not reached the peak of the storm surge quite yet, expecting about 5 to 8 feet, and already more than 200,000 people have lost their power. They've gotten several 911 calls over flooding as well. So right now they are just hoping those who evacuated from Zone A evacuated. There's a lot of concern over the barrier islands as well. I just want to show you how strong some of the conditions are over here, but you can really see those trees swaying from that wind. And of course, we can only imagine how the water looks like as of now when we were there, when it was earlier there during the day. But I've been talking to people over text, just checking in with them. Some of them have not evacuated from some of those zones. They wanted to keep track of their homes, but it looks like the water had reached about waist deep level right now in some of those neighborhoods, including Shore Acres. We also spoke to those living in the Edgemore neighborhood. They've been sending me pictures of how their streets looked earlier this morning and how it looked days before. When we checked out some of those streets, they were already flooded. So we can only imagine what those streets look like with the strength of this wind, with the strength of the storm surge as well. Just speaking to some neighbors who evacuated to some of these hotel rooms closer inland, I can tell you their heart is just breaking seeing the water going into their homes once again. And they're just hoping that as we continue to see these conditions, the amount of damage they see is just minimal. But right now, a lot of people just heartbroken at these conditions right now. And first responders are just hoping people are hunkering down somewhere safe where they can be away from the storm surge and the water here. Dave and Courtney.
All right, Miguel, thank you so much. And Miguel, live for us in downtown St. Pete. we want to give you a look at what we're seeing in Gulfport. We have viewers that are kind of sending in photos throughout the evening, and we have one of those pictures, I think, from Denise. And you can just see just how much, there you go, just how much water is there. There was another angle that we were seeing. So it's probably more than like a foot and a half is what it looks like, and especially against some of the businesses that we've seen. Just one look at part of our area.
Wow, this is a waterfront community, but this is not what it normally looks like. David Shealy is at the Sponge Docks up in Tarpon Springs for us right now. David, what are you seeing there?
So we were able to make it safely to the docks, and this street is indeed flooded. It is about waist deep. If you were to go way in there, we're obviously not going to step in there. We have a visual of a city truck. Now, that truck earlier today was just sitting there. There wasn't anybody in the truck. About 30 minutes ago, you could see the headlights of that truck. You can no longer see the headlights, just so you have an idea, of how high the water has gone. There's also live wires that have gone down, according to the Tarpon Springs Police Department. Some live wires are in this water as well. So there are some people here trying to take pictures, but we're letting them know, stay away from these waters, stay out of the water, because there are live wires. Now, we were able to meet a business owner, Nick. I'll bring him in here. He's one of the business owners. And Nick, how did you prepare for this storm? And from what you can see, how are things looking for your business right there just behind us?
I mean, you can't really prepare for it. You just got to ride it out, being that we are in the Sponge Docks area. It's been going on forever. So people try to put sandbags in front of their businesses, and they try to tape up. They try to do whatever they can. Pretty much just be better if everybody would stop driving by the businesses and with their big lifted trucks and pushing the water further and further into the businesses. Best thing you can do is pretty much just wait it out. I mean, it's typical if you're a Tarpon Springs business owner, in the Sponge Docks especially, that when the storm comes, Tropics never goes underwater. It is completely underwater. So that just goes to show you guys how bad everything's going right here, right now. That white truck was there to prevent people from driving through. It's a city truck. They sacrificed it. And the only thing we could do is ask people to, care about the businesses and try not to push wake further and make things already worse than they already are.
So this is about the worst you've seen it here on the street.
Absolutely. There was a no-name storm probably in the 90s, I think, that had shrimp boats on top of the bridge over here. But besides that, this is the worst I've ever seen it. Tropics never gets flooded, ever. Sidewalk gets wet at the most, and it's completely underwater inside. So this lets everybody know how bad the rest of the businesses at the end of the street are. They're completely sunk.
We'll continue to wait it out, Nick. Thank you for your time, and stay safe out here. Thank you for your time. Again, Tarpon Springs, right here at the Sponge Docks. This is a flooded area. Please avoid this area. There are live wires that are down in the water. So if you are trying to be like some folks here, some of our neighbors here are trying to take in the sights of the flood, do not go into the water because of the live wires. For now, in Tarpon Springs at the Sponge Docks, David Shealy in Tampa Bay.
David, thank you. Really great perspective there from Nick, and you can see people now walking behind you as well as they're out there surveying that damage. And a lot of what we're seeing, we can see the level of the water right now, but a lot of that damage we're going to see when we have light and the full scope of what's happened.
David, this is such a tourist destination down there in Tarpon Springs, and some of these people cater to the tourists. I know they have seen flooding there before, as Nick mentioned there. Do you know how far down, how many businesses, do you have a sense as to how many are impacted? Are we talking dozens? Are we talking hundreds? Or how much damage, or how far and widespread do you think this flooding is?
Probably at least 40.
So just overhearing Nick just now, he said it's about 40-ish businesses right here in the Sponge Docks, and they're all dealing with this flood right now. Now, we have seen sandbags in front of their doors all day. They boarded their windows. They had sandbags in front of the doors. Some of the businesses way down there had some metal barriers as well. So they prepared. But as we heard them say, this is historic to them because the water has not been this high before. So as you mentioned, once the light comes, once the sun comes out and we're able to actually see what's going on, we'll get a real assessment of the water damage.
Yeah, and this is dirty water. I mean,
Right.
this is not clean water going into your building, and that's a whole different problem for a lot of folks. It's dirty, it's dangerous. There's just a lot in that water, and it's tough to recover from it. It takes a lot of work to mitigate that.
I mean, the damage that salt water does to a lot of things, including, we talked about that, right, Dave? The lithium ion batteries. It could be a Tesla. It could be your kid's hoverboard. All of those things can be corroded by that salt water. That is to say the least about the damage that we're seeing. We do have, I think, a look live at Siesta Key right now. This is an area, to get a view of that. 10:25 right now, and look right there. Grainy picture, but you can see that water pushing in.
Yeah, and this is just multiplied by many, many communities across the Tampa Bay area, and it's difficult to tell when you look at a picture like
Right.
this or live.
The center of the storm, meaning that the margin of error could mean the center of the storm tracks a lot closer to Tampa Bay or a lot further away from Tampa Bay. And this is such a compact storm that's going to make a big difference, just a matter of miles, as to who gets hurricane force winds and who just has kind of a rainy, blustery day. The good news is the forecast models continue to be in good agreement. Now, yesterday we talked about how we needed one good model run once the actual center formed to have an even higher confidence in that forecast. So that'll be this afternoon or this evening's model run, depending on how it's lining up, where those models get that fixed center position, and they're all reading off of that same center position. So we could potentially get a little bit more confidence in this forecast, which I would like to see. Everyone in the Tampa Bay area would like to see a further westerly shift. We saw an infinitesimal westerly shift with that 11 a.m. track. It did remove most of the Bay Area from the official cone, but keeping in mind, all of the effects are felt well outside the cone in most cases. And so this means that the dirty side of the storm will be from Perry over to Crystal River. And so especially areas like the Big Bend will see a very, very high storm surge. We're not seeing much differentiation between the GFS and the Euro. The GFS is a little stronger and a little faster, making impact a little faster as well, but neither making a big difference in terms of landfall locations between the two major forecast models there. All of them keeping that fast forward motion even upon landfall, which means we won't see those flooding rains over inland areas. And so the question has been, can it turn too early, and why is it going to make this path? Why are all the forecast models so confident in this path? So we have some influencing steering currents here. The Bermuda high, of course, the air going clockwise around a high pressure system, that's helping steer it up. And this with the jet stream lifting up a little bit of a trough lifting up a little bit is what allows and steers this system into the Big Bend area. And so the big question mark is, does it lift out perfectly timed? If it does stay lower, it would cause it to turn in a little bit late, a little bit earlier. I don't think we're going to have to worry about friction from outermost rain bands because it is such a compact storm. And so a lot of storms like
It is a very compact storm, and believe you me, it's now a Category 4 hurricane heading towards Florida. Where I am, I can hear the rain pounding on my windows, the breeze blowing outside. It's on and off. I think Jamaica, the western tip of Jamaica, is getting the outer ban of this hurricane. I won't be staying with you too long with this hurricane watch. But believe you me, it's heading towards Florida. It's gonna hit Florida, direct hit to Florida. Where I am right now, it's heading towards Coral Springs and so forth, the breeze and the rain and everything like that. Where I am, like as I said before, I can hear the rains outside and the breeze blowing, but the rainfall on the windows outside and the doors. It's gonna be a long night. I pray and hope it doesn't really affect where I am too much. But as I said, the whole entire thing will make landfall pretty soon. between now into the morning, it will make landfall. I pray and hope everybody else will be okay. And, you know, this hurricane season that is on us, I pray and hope that it will not be something that, you know, especially in this area in Florida, a lot of people are evacuating, a lot of street people. As I said before, a lot of Jamaicans are on the streets in Florida. And, you know, it is really heartrending to know that your fellow man is out there and you can't assist. But what can you do? We pray and hope that they find somewhere safe to shelter from the storm. But it is coming. It's a Category 4 hurricane heading towards Florida. There's a live look on the Florida coast. I'm going to put up the camera that you all can see the live feed from the Florida coast. Let me stop this here and go over to that live feed that we have coming in to our news center here on the Make We Talk YouTube channel. Let us go over to there. I see if it's a live feed I'm getting. There it is. Let me go over to this right here. That's a live feed of Florida coast.
That was like a big one. I feel like the camera over there. I'm not whole fisted, baby. Here, don't do the shit. Go first. You'll know. I know it's just a phone, but you know, my arm does start to hurt. Big power flash again. Perfect example of what not to do ever. But conditions are still going down in the I do want to kind of talk about out in the area. Just in case what
You're just joining us the live feed from Florida coast, the coastline of Florida, where this hurricane is heading towards Florida. It's going to be a Category 4 when it makes landfall.
Say nothing, dude. Same area.
Yes, and it's pouring outside now. It is pouring cats and dog outside where I am. It's coming down heavy. The breeze is a bit heavy outside. And this is the live look of the Florida coastline. Let me see if I can get a different angle of the reporting of Hurricane Helene. It is now a Category 4 hurricane. And it is coming down heavily. It is coming down heavily. Let me go over to a news just come in from, I think this is, let me see something here. Hold on for me. Just one moment. Let me get this up that you all can get to see what I'm talking about. Let us get this. Let us stop this for a while and then go over to this. Good night to Canada that is coming into us. Canada and other people who are watching us. It's Hurricane Watch on the Mequitalk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. A live feed that is coming into us from Fort Myers, Florida. A lot of people has evacuated from certain places.
It is Thursday evening, September 26, 2024, and we are just hours away from landfall of major Hurricane Helene. Yesterday when we spoke, we had talked about this being a possibility of rapid intensification getting underway and pushing Helene up to major status, and it did so earlier today. And today at the recording of this video, it is a Category 4 storm, just about 65 to 70 miles south of the Florida coastline, building inland for landfall right around 11 o'clock Eastern time. So Helene has satisfied rapid intensification criteria. What is that? That's an increase in sustained winds by at least 35 miles per hour within a period of time of 24 hours. And we certainly did that today. In fact, we surpassed the criteria. Extreme impacts are already underway. We're talking storm surge values continuing to rise. Forecast from the Hurricane Center puts values possibly getting as high as 20 feet. In the Big Bend area, Florida areas just to the east of the landfall location, we'll see those highest inundation amounts. And that historic storm surge, certainly historic, but also this will likely be the strongest storm to ever hit this part of the Florida coastline. Not the strongest storm to ever hit Florida, just this particular geographic location along the Florida panhandle. Impacts for the southeast U.S. also going to be wide scale and last for days in terms of power outages and downed trees, because this ginormous wind field will be moving inland. So here's a loop over the last several hours of what is now major hurricane Category 4, Helene. At the latest update, 130 mile per hour winds. Now we are getting hourly updates from the Hurricane Center that started earlier this afternoon and will continue until well after it makes landfall later this evening. Gusts to 155 miles per hour. And it is moving quicker. It's been accelerating to the north at 23 miles per hour now, and pressure continues to fall. Again, as long as it's over water, which it's got a couple more hours over the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, the Northeast Gulf, we may see a quick little burst of intensification right up until landfall, unfortunately. Here's a look at just how large the cloud shield is. It extends not only up into the Northeast Gulf, but really it covers almost the entire eastern seaboard, almost everywhere east of the Mississippi River. And this is that tropical fetch coming up and over and heading up into New England. It's not particularly bringing any gusty winds or anything like that far to the north, but it's just the overall cloud deck all associated with Helene well off to the south there. So Category 4 right now. Even after moving inland, it doesn't immediately dissipate. It takes a little bit of time. It does dissipate rapidly, but not immediate. So by Friday, about 4 hours after landfall tonight, so by Friday morning, 2 a.m., we're still talking a Category 2 storm. By this point, with it moving probably 25, 26 miles per hour to the north, it will have made it into southern Georgia. So we're talking a Cat 2 hurricane in South Georgia overnight tonight with a huge wind scale. I'm going to show you that wind field. I'll show you that in a second. It continues accelerating to the north, decays down to a tropical depression and remnant low by 12 hours later, Friday afternoon. And then it runs into an upper level feature. You may have heard this getting thrown around a lot, Fujiwara effect. Well, it's an upper level system that's actually going to pull it on in and absorb the energy from what is left of Helene and kind of stall it out and dissipate it right to the east of the Mississippi River in Tennessee and portions of Kentucky. So here's a look at the wind field coming from the 8 o'clock advisory tonight. This huge lobe of tropical storm force winds extending out about 400 miles in diameter, maybe even a little bit larger than that. That's 39 mile per hour winds or greater. Right now, a good chunk of Florida is experiencing that at this time. Strongest of the winds already beginning to build onshore, 55 miles per hour considered damaging wind gusts. And then the hurricane force winds of at least 74 to 75 are closer to the center of Helene. Builds inland tonight, and by 11:30 or so, we've already got the strongest winds building into South Georgia, northeastern, northwestern portions of Florida getting socked with
eyes on the radar out here because I can't see it because of the situation. Can you tell me?
So, Mike, you are right in the middle of the eye wall. The last time I talked to you, you were right on the edge, about to get into it. And now I'd say you're directly in the middle of the donut part of the eye wall, I suppose. With the eye, I would say the eye is probably there within about 20 minutes to half an hour at most, I suppose, right? Can we get on a radar here that shows exactly where Perry is, by the way? Somebody maybe take control of this if we get a chance. But yeah, you're right in the middle of the eye wall. It's pretty much right. Oh, there we go. Hold on. That's okay. We're switching up. I'm going to show you guys exactly where Mike is right now, just to give you some perspective here. But that, I mean, Mike is right in the middle of a category, the worst of a category for hurricanes winds, right? I don't know that it's going to get too much worse than that. Maybe a little bit worse, actually, as he gets into the inner eye wall. So, yeah, that is where the worst of the landfall is going to be. Here we go. Okay, so just showing you where Mike was. He's right in Perry, Florida, which is well inland. And by the way, you notice a lot of our reporters, we don't have any reporters that are directly along the beach in the Big Bend. And there's a reason for that, because that is going to be some extremely dangerous flash flooding. Look on the bottom right of your screen. Cross City, not quite in the eye wall, but still in a very nasty part of the storm. We're going to go right out to Cross City right now, where Fox Weather's Robert Ray is. Last time we talked to Robert, he was in this band out here. Maybe the rain has lightened up a little bit, but how's the wind situation?
Well, I tell you, actually the rain, I feel like, has gotten heavier, at least in spurts. The wind has died down, which is interesting. It's just, I think, where we're located geographically right now, even though Helene is making that approach to land right now, for some reason, I think we're in a pocket where the wind just doesn't want to really accelerate at this point. But the rain is just nonstop. I mean, the wind gusts are coming in, but they're much lighter than the last time we talked, Ari. And yet the power, remember when the power went out? At about 10:10 Eastern time here? It is still completely out. It will be out now at least until tomorrow, maybe even days after here, as this imminent landfall. And, you talked about where Perry is strategically located. It's about 30, 40 miles from here. It depends, on where that crow flies. But this actually is a bit of a lull in the wind field right now here in Cross City, about 20 miles from Steinhatchee, which is right on the Gulf of Mexico, which if it wasn't pitch black, we may have a better idea as to what that storm surge is doing there, potentially up to 20 feet. Now we're getting a wind gust coming in, Ari, and maybe you see some of the tree debris coming through, but with that wind gust, you get the heavy rain as well. And so the ebb and flow of these outer bands, as Helene is making its way here into the Big Bend and the Nature Coast, we are soaking wet. There's no doubt about it. Our camera, even though it is tucked deep into a vehicle, is taking spray, and that's just what happens when you have this kind of intensity. And, my concern is the fact that we are in the dark of night with no power. And so we just don't know what the impacts are going to be. First responders cannot get out in this. It's too dangerous to drive. And for us, at this point, we don't know what's going on these roads right now. For all we know, there's down power lines. We've seen some of that from our storm chasers. So we'll continue to monitor this here and, hope for the best. Really, that's all we can do right now, Ari.
Yeah, great job, Robert. I appreciate it. Maybe you're getting a little bit lucky not getting directly in the middle of the eye wall there, but I do want to take people back into the middle of the eye wall right now. We're going to go up about 40 miles or so to the northwest where we just were. We were just talking to Mike Seidel. He's up in Perry. Now we're going to bring in Brandon Kopic, exclusive Fox Weather storm tracker. Man, Brandon, you're right in the middle of the eye wall. Tell me what it's like. A Cat 4. Look at that.
Yeah, it's definitely intense. Surprisingly, we've kept power in a few areas. We've had this transformer just continue to blow up in front of us. A lot of the areas without power, there's a lot of down trees and power lines, but we're not even in the worst of it yet. It's only going to get worse.
Yeah, so explain that to me, because we're looking at exactly where you are. I've got the radar pulled up, and maybe we can pull that up super briefly just to show where Brandon is. But you're kind of in the middle of the eye wall. So explain, you have a lot of experience storm tracking and things like that. As that inner eye wall gets over you, is it going to get a lot more intense? Is the inner eye wall more intense than the middle and outer part of the eye wall?
Yeah, so actually the most intense portion of your eye wall in a hurricane is going to be right before you get into the eye. Right there at the leading edge where you see on radar where the precip ends right there, there's actually areas of mesovortices, and you guys are about to see a huge power flash, areas of mesovortices that are like tornadoes that are embedded within the circulation. That they're like little tornadoes that spin within the circulation of the eye wall, and that creates super intense wind fields. Obviously, I'm not saying that there's tornadoes embedded in the eye wall here, but just as an example, you get these tornado-like features that are called mesovortices in the inner edge of the eye wall that really spin up quickly.
How does this compare to other storms that you've been in? You know, a lot of the times when like a Category 3 or a Category 4 comes ashore, you know, the Hurricane Center will be saying 140-mile-per-hour winds, and maybe you never see an actual, you know, ground report or an observation of 140 miles per hour. You know, how do you think this one is going to stack up? I guess you haven't been in the inner eye wall yet to know for sure, but what's your gut telling you here?
Well, honestly, I hope you guys got my live shot up right now.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we're at least hitting some 100-mile-an-hour reports at the very least, but the most intense portion, like I said, is yet to come. I think we will see some fairly strong gusts, so it's definitely keeping us busy out here.
Jeez, did you? Okay, I imagine you just saw that, Brandon, right? Or I don't know if we're a little bit.
Yeah, you guys are delayed by about, I think, 15 seconds or so.
Oh, we're delayed by 15 seconds. So you were referring to that big power flash right there with the transformer blowing up, right?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, jeez. Okay, I thought we were all synced up. I guess we're about 15 seconds off. I was like, why didn't Brandon react to that? That seems like something worth reacting to. Yeah, so this is what you're going to get in a major hurricane like this. It's a Category 4 hurricane. You're probably going to get some legit Category 4 wind. It's pretty unbelievable. Now, I know you're pretty far inland here, and you guys probably had to go through the decision-making process. Are we going to try to get some video of the storm surge along the coast? You know, you saw some of those numbers. Was that kind of your thought here? Like, okay, forget the storm surge aspect of this. It's too dangerous. Let's just get inland and try to get in the eye wall.
Yeah, the big thing right now is safety. After dark, we can't visually see the storm surge rising. So we can't safely make the decision to stay close to the coast because we can't see how quickly the water is rising. And that can honestly put us in a perilous situation. So Vince, Corey, and myself all deem that we're going to stay within Perry and stay within a couple miles of each other. That way, if we need each other's assistance, we can.
I have also noticed here the direction that you have your car pointed. It's directly into the wind. And I'd imagine, you know, you guys have a lot of experience with this, a lot more than I do. This is probably so the car doesn't blow over, right? I imagine, what are you pointing toward, the south, the southeast, right?
Yeah, so think about it this way. Think about NASCAR. I know a lot of people love NASCAR. When the car is going into the wind, that pushes that downforce on the front. So what happens is when you get into these intense winds, either in the eye wall or even close to tornadic circulation, you always want to point the nose of your car into the wind, because that, first off, is the smallest area to get hit by the wind, and it will also push it downward and go over top of your car, as opposed to the back of the vehicle is more flat, where it can actually get under it and the backside of it and push you forward.
Man, the amount of stuff that you guys know about, it's unbelievable. I'd love to get out there in a storm with you guys at some point. Hey, listen, be safe, guys. We're going to be checking in with you plenty over the next couple of hours. Unbelievable pictures there. You saw a transformer exploding live on TV there, and that's not the first time that's happened tonight. We had it a little bit earlier down in the St. Petersburg area with Ian Oliver. That was an even bigger explosion. That was something big that exploded, electricity related. All right, we're going to stay in Perry here, which is right there. That's the exact spot that Brandon Kopic was in. I guess we'll go to a little bit of a different part of town here. Let's go to Mike Seidel again. And Mike, I'm sorry. Oh, sorry. We're not going to go to Mike quite yet, but we will get to him in just a second. He's getting his shot up, and it's more than understandable. He's about to be in the inner part of the eye wall, and you saw what it was like there in Perry. Absolutely unbelievable. Maybe we can okay, let's actually go back out to Mike now. It sounds like he's ready. All right, Mike, what's the eye wall like? Are things getting a lot worse as the inner eye wall gets closer to you?
I think it's holding steady. We're still getting these hurricane force wind gusts, torrential pelting rainfall blowing horizontally. The power behind me down the road has gone out. We still have some power across the street. That's it. Other than that, it's just a big, dark, scary, stormy night here on the Florida Big Bend. This area hit with Idalia, then hit with Debbie in August, and now another one. The the NOAA buoy down at Keaton Beach is not operating, not reporting, so I have no idea what the winds are like there. There is another reporting station, I think at Depot Beach. I don't know if someone back at the home office here in New York can pick that up, but our winds here have gusted over hurricane force, and they continue to just, whoo, there's a good one right there. That is a pretty healthy gust. And this is the issue here. It's moving so fast, and we're going to get potentially 70-mile-an-hour gusts, maybe hurricane force gusts, well into southern and central Georgia. And then on the back side, the east side, the worst side of this, is going to go up towards Augusta, Georgia, right there on the river. And that's going to knock out power too, along with all the rainfall. Even though it's been so dry most of the summer, you know, the first couple inches, but then when you get up to 6, 7, 8 inches, then you run into issues with flash flooding, and then the trees get uprooted. Whoa! Did you see that power flash, Ari?
I was surprised I didn't hear you.
There goes another one.
Yeah, it was at least two.
There goes
Look at it, it's still
another
going.
one. Holy. Oh my gosh, that was 3 or 4 right there. I thought it was lightning. There goes another one. That's 4 or 5. Way in the distance. I thought at first it was lightning, but definitely not lightning.
Yeah, it's tough
So
to
we
tell,
have, what,
Mike.
4 or 5, Ari?
Yeah, it's tough to tell when you're out in the field. I could tell it was a power flash immediately because it had kind of a green glow and it lasted a long time. And I was going to try to cut in and tell you. And then obviously we got the 4 or 5 in a row. But
there goes another one.
There you go. I'm going to send it.
6.
Yeah, you just keep going,
Holy
Mike. This is
smokes.
incredible.
I've never seen that many power flashes back to back to back in my career. There goes another one. The whole sky is just lighting up in green. This is unbelievable. Holy. And I think Robert, my camera and my photog is wide enough that you can see the flash. Am I correct, Ari? You can see that back at home.
Oh, yes, you can absolutely see it. It's the star of the show while it was going on. But that is unbelievable. You've covered a lot of these storms. Like you're saying, you've never seen this many power flashes in a row?
No, this is something I've never experienced. I've seen maybe 1 or 2, and I've seen them with ice storms in the Northeast, but I've never seen anything like that. That would have to be, what, 6 or 7. I'm going to have to grab that one for the YouTube channel. The wind still battering us. What is the situation now? How far are we from the actual eye?
Well,
is it wobbling, so we stayed it longer?
Yeah, I'll be impressed if you can hear me talking here, Mike. But yeah, I mean, you're still going to be about you're still going to be about 15 or 20 minutes at least in this stuff. The inner eye wall is it's starting to get closer to you. You're over the halfway point within the eye wall donut, I would say, but you've still got a little bit to go.
Haven't seen any more power flashes, but that's fine. Again, you get out here and the adrenaline goes. You know, this is part of the reason I do this is, well, the main reason is just to, report on the weather, and it's always been a hobby of mine since I was young, but also, try to keep people safe and save lives. But when you have an experience like that, it's something you won't forget. I'm not going to forget that, all these power flashes. And it's only the second. Oh, by the way, I wanted to mention, what is the pressure right now? I wanted to ask you what the pressure is.
I think at last check, it was 939, if I'm not mistaken, right? The pressure he's asking with the pressure. Yeah, 939. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's put that in perspective, Ian. I was covering Ian down at Fort Myers Beach 2 years ago. We were there at the Causeway at the Marriott in the eye wall of a Cat 4 for 4 or 5 hours. This is not going to last nearly that long, but the pressure at landfall was 941 millibars. And now we're below 941. So this pressure at landfall is likely going to be lower than Ian was. Ian, though, was a different animal. Wasn't as large, but also it came into a more populated area, beach resorts. The Big Bend area is not nearly as populated, and there's not really any beach resorts per se. We've got a couple of beaches, Keaton and Deacle. Steamhatchee is more of a fishing town. It's not right on the Gulf. So there you go. We've got pressures lower than Ian, from August of 2022 as we continue just to feel the wrath of this Cat 4 hurricane. You know, we've been watching this, what, about 10 or 11 days from that disturbance that came across the Atlantic. And then it kind of hooked up with a gyre down there in the Western Caribbean. And here we are with Hurricane Helene making landfall shortly. We're going to stay with you, Ari, and we'll come back out here as time permits, and we'll throw it back to you in Atlanta.
Yeah, unbelievable, Mike. We're going to be coming back out to you plenty of times in the next couple of hours. We're very close to landfall here. I'm looking at some of these new radar scans. I think we're within about 15 minutes to half an hour of official landfall, which is when the center of the eye makes it over land. That's what it looks like. That's what you're going to get with a Category 4 eye wall. So be prepared for that. Again, it's in Perry right now. It's going to be moving up toward the north. A lot of people inland are going to get some big wind, widespread power outages. Stay with us.
There you have it, live coverage of the hurricane. Well, we're going to say thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being a part of the program. Yours truly got to go and get some sleep. Good night, everyone. Pray for us all. God bless. Good night. Have a great night, everybody. Hope this hurricane will really go away. Good night, everyone. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Make We Talk Jeffrey Tavares YouTube channel. Good night.
It's still blowing in the 30s, 49-mile-per-hour wind. Guys, when the sun comes up tomorrow, this water's coming out slowly overnight. There's a lot of stuff tore up on these beaches. I'm seeing pics and video from the north end of Anna Maria Island with about that much water, about 3 to 4 feet of water over parts of the island.
In Congress, I helped pass bipartisan laws to lower the cost of prescription drugs, took guns out of the hands of violent offenders, made historic investments in